The #1 Zerg in the world, Dark, is in the finals. Now, who will go up against him? That's what we're here to find out. Who will be the second grand finalist of the WCS 2016 Global Finals? We're live from Anaheim in California at BlizzCon to decide who will be that next player. We're getting excited, we're getting jiggly on the couch. We must contain ourselves, so we've got to break down the upcoming semi-final for you. And to help me do so, we have In Control. Hello, mate.
Hello.
Gaffaroo, and we have Pig, and we have Todd. With the Pig, it's always that nickname where it's like, hello In Control, that's okay. Hello Todd, okay, that's kind of French. Hello Pig.
Yeah, I just like to disrupt things a little bit, you know. It's like a semi-offensive animal term, kind of makes things a little bit confusing, but it's different, and people remember it.
Your pink shirt to embrace that as well.
Yeah, I am proud of our scene though. Like, Pig is the outlier. Pig, not that big of a deal. You know, there are some decent pigs, but imagine if like one of the best minds of StarCraft was like Booger Butt 69. We can't really hire you. You got no place to be. It's like, just call me Booger. It's like, no, can't call you that either.
Luckily, that's not us up here, the minds of StarCraft, but the minds together then. Let's start talking about the second semi-final. First up, we have Stats going up against ByuN. Let's talk about Stats a little bit here, Todd. Is our resident Protoss player here. Oh, sorry, Jeff. He is a player now who's looking to get past ByuN to be in the finals, but this seems like a very, very difficult task he has ahead of him.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about Stats, though, is another one of those Protosses that is very underestimated. He's very well-rounded, capable of mixing in a lot of different builds, and he's had some incredible results as of late. He's really not being given the credit he deserves, I think, in regards to that. And if you look at this guy in a best-of-5, best-of-7, he's just going to play with so many different builds all the time. It's going to be, you know, hidden Robos here and there. He's going to take the Colossus sometimes, going to Double Forge, Dark Shrine. He's capable of anything. That's what makes him very dangerous, but all like ByuN is also similar.
Todd, it's usually you that makes this point, but in this top 3, mate, we got 1 Terran, 1 Zerg, and 1 Protoss.
You're right.
Somewhere out there, David Kim is like, I told you all. I knew it was coming.
I talked about this a bit yesterday, actually.
Yeah,
we gave him a shout out. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool to see that. I guess
we could get him up here on the couch.
Everything's perfectly balanced as it could be. Obviously, there had to be one race where that was going to have 2 players in the top 4. So it was going to be definitely the most OP one.
Oh yeah, of course.
Well, he's taking it a notch further. Who's the best Terran? Who's the best Zerg? Who's the best Protoss of the year? Wouldn't you probably say it's all 3 of these guys? And we don't even have to hype that up. It's actually kind of real.
This tournament has actually worked out really well like that.
Is there a better Protoss than Stats?
I feel like it's not as, you can't just pick one with Protoss a lot of the time. I don't know if I would go as far as saying he's the best. Like, from this tournament, yes, he's been the best. But usually, like, there definitely be some guys in there that you could also pick that will equal him. But in this tournament, for sure.
I feel like this year
he's outplayed everybody.
This year's been a lot about Zest and Stats, who's #1. I mean...
But to Todd's point, in Protoss, it's more contentious.
Yeah.
I think you would say ByuN's been the best Terran this year. And I think you would say Dark has been the best Zerg. And then Protoss, there's a debate, but it's between Stats and maybe 1 or 2 other guys.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's amazing that it worked out that way.
And then his opponent then, ByuN, talking about ByuN. I mean, we've spoke so many times about him over the last couple of days. A remarkable story in itself, how he started at the very first GSL tournament back in 2010 to the player that he is today. He stopped playing StarCraft for a couple of years. He returned. He became a champion for the first time. And he's here looking to do the unthinkable, to win GSL, to then win the biggest tournament of the year. And it's likely.
Yeah, ByuN is incredible. Like, the thing about him, too, is that, like, most Terrans, they often say that if they fall behind, it's very hard to recover as Terran. But ByuN yesterday, in the TVT he played, it was almost as if he wanted to start in the first 2 games with a 20 supply deficit and then try and come back from there. And he did in one of those 2 games.
Yeah, he's just been really looking so good lately, and he did have a little bit of trouble with Showtime in the round of 16, but he kind of recovered from that, and then, you know, just crushed trouble.
Is that how you're going to describe that?
He got kind of face rolled.
A little bit of trouble. He lost 0-2.
He recovered very well, though. I mean, when he played against Deer, it was like completely different ByuN that came out. You know, he figured out his weaknesses, he practiced with Showtime a bit, and it really was a very different player we saw.
I think that loss helped him a lot, too, much like Elazer's loss against TY. After that, he was like a different Elazer that we saw up until the semifinals, and it's the same thing for ByuN. Like, after that loss to Showtime, he was like, all right, I'm not even going to sleep anymore. Let's just play StarCraft non-stop and then try and crush these nerds. And so far, he looked really good every time we saw him.
I know we just talked about stats, but I almost feel bad for him while discussing ByuN, because to me, ByuN versus Dark is the momentous, this is what the finals has to be, classic TVZ matchup, the two most red-hot players. And it's like, Stats like, but what about no Stats? ByuN's too good.
I mean, they're very familiar with each other. Actually, I think historically it's 4 and 3. And it's all on Legacy of the Void, which is very rare. So they meet each other very often. So they're going to be very familiar with one another. But at the same time, neither player really has one style that they like to play mostly. They just mix in a lot of different builds. So it's going to be a little bit of like us rolling the dice, picking a build order on the map, and then hoping that you pull ahead from there, which in ByuN's case, again, even if he falls behind, that guy is so good at recovering.
One thing I want to bring up about ByuN before we look at the matchup specifically is I think there's a lot of people behind ByuN because he's been that figure within the community for a very, very long time. If you watch the Korean StarCraft leagues closely, this guy has been close. He plays online. He dominates online. He's been very close to getting to that pinnacle of his career, but he could never get there. And now he is on the biggest stage. He's got a lot of support behind him. He's got a lot of momentum. I don't see another way that this guy isn't going to the finals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of cool because in sports, a lot of times the most dangerous team or guy or girl is the person that's playing the best at the end of the season. And we're at that end of the season. This is the final WCS tournament. This is the biggest tournament of the year. And ByuN, coming off that GSL win, has been given that belief. You are good enough to do it on your own. He's on a team now. People believe in him. I'm sure he's got practice partners up to wazoo. I would practice ByuN, but of course it'd be terrible. So he believes he can do it, and he's red hot. This is the absolute best time for him.
So how does this matchup take place then, Todd? I mean, ByuN, the way that he plays typically is just to roll over you. He's fast, he's aggressive, he'll be in your face. Is Stats going to be able to keep up defensively with him?
Actually, I think he might challenge to try and get crazy himself, maybe go for a couple of really aggressive builds himself, as good as he is defensively. If he starts proxying, like again, this is a guy who not too long ago played against Ryong in an online tournament, and on King Sejong Station proxied a Robo, then he went for 3 gates in his main, just made a ton of units, defended the attack of Ryong that he probably knew was going to come, so we could be seeing crazy builds here all over the place. One more thing that I'd like to add about ByuN, by the way, is that I feel like it's very easy to relate to him. Like, look at him and see like how human he looks compared to some of these other Koreans that barely show any emotion when they win. Dark, like he looked very impressive, but he barely flinched after his game. Like obviously it was an easy one, but ByuN, every time you see him win, he's like he does this very like nerdy like fist bump, like this. Just and I think, yeah, exactly. And like a lot of people are like, yeah, that's what I do as well when I win. So they see themselves in him, and that's why I think a lot of people love to see him play and win.
Yeah, I really see this match as partly can Stats step out of that shadow of just hitting the round of 4 over and over again. We had the little note scrolling at the bottom of the screen there saying round of 4 gate. He just makes it to the round of 4 every time, but he doesn't make it to the finals. He very rarely does win these tournaments. So, I mean, I feel like Stats really has had one of the most consistent, I could probably say the most consistent year out of any player in the world, up until he gets to that round of 4, and then he falls off. And because he's lacking that championship, that's why we haven't been talking about him as a favorite for the tournament. Every round we say, oh, he's really good. It's going to be a really hard challenge, but is he actually going to bring that A game? And I think this is such a testing moment for him. And I kind of am viewing this match through, I know ByuN's going to play well, but is Stats going to bring it? Is he going to challenge him? And if he brings his A game, I can very easily see him taking ByuN down. But it's really that question of Stats' mental state and just how focused he is.
All right, prediction and final thoughts then. In control?
I really feel like ByuN smokes this, and my prediction would even be like 3-0, 3-1. And if I had to, I'd say 3-0. The level of play he has brought has looked literally maybe one other player on planet Earth can play at that pace right now.
I think, I'm feeling ByuN just a little bit. He's got that edge, but I think Stats will give him a good fight. Probably 3-2 ByuN.
We saw it's 4-3 in series, 11-8 in maps, so you might think that this will be a very close map, and I hope it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 3-0, but I'm going to predict 3-2 for ByuN. I'm just feeling it for him today.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. So it's done here. It's time to find out who's going to be the second finalist joining Dark. Let's go to the second semi-final.
Heroes of Azeroth, I have witnessed our end. Demonic armies spilling over the horizon and onto our shores. Heed my warning. The Burning Legion has returned. Stronger, more determined than ever before. These demons seek to annihilate everything upon Azeroth. No single person can stand against the Legion alone. And so you came to me. I will deal with these intruders. No, she wouldn't. I knew we couldn't trust her!
In the end, death claims us all.
The Legion cannot be stopped. Our time is short. Now go. But remember, should you fail, all worlds will burn.
The 2016 World Championship Series Global Finals is brought to you by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
Dark waits in the grand finals, and now it is time to find out who will move on to face him. Our first player is the one-man army, and as a recent GSL champion, he's looking to continue riding his momentum to move on to the grand finals. His opponent is a two-time finalist this year, and now he is fighting for his chance to become a champion on the biggest tournament stage of 2016. Please welcome on stage, ByuN and Stats!
The time has come to decide our second grand finalist here at BlizzCon 2016. What a story for both of these players' Stats, looking for that big win, and ByuN, one of the most interesting players to follow all year long, competing with the best of the best in Korea without a team and getting himself this deep into the biggest tournament of the year.
I couldn't agree more, Nate. Protoss vs Terran semi-final, so ready for this. ByuN, I think it's safe to say, the hottest player on Earth right now. After winning the GSL, after looking just incredible pretty much throughout the year. Even when he didn't win the tournaments, he always got everybody so excited. You watch him playing, you know you're watching something else. You know you're watching Terran at the absolute highest level. And then we have Stats trying to do perhaps a little similar to what SOS did in 2013. Having a good year, but waiting for that one big tournament victory. Could be his moment. Well, I mean, the guys on the couch, they all said ByuN, and it's hard to disagree with them, and this guy, Nate, he's something else.
Yeah, ByuN has been one of the coolest players to follow since the beta of Legacy of the Void. This guy was destroying all of the pre-tournaments, came in hot at the start of the year, but it took a little bit of time for him to find his stride, and it has been awesome to watch him come up and make this run. And of course, we have a lot of ByuN fans, it looks like, in the crowd. And we are getting ready to go into this first match. I hope you guys are too. All right, let's get this second semifinal underway. We will kick things off on Frozen Temple for this TVP of the Ages. Spawning in the bottom right position as the blue Terran player carrying himself all year long, the GSL champion, ByuN! His opponent, the underdog Protoss, still one of the best in the world in the Northwest. He is Stats!
This is going to be so good, Nate. It's going to be such an incredibly good series. I just feel it. I know it. And our first map, Frozen Temple, this is one of these maps where Terran players like to be aggressive. And if most Terrans like to be aggressive, well, then ByuN is most likely going to be hyper-aggressive. And we can already see the signs of it.
ByuN is known for his not only impeccable micro, his ability to make magic happen, that X factor, but he has such a range of style, and we're not entirely sure what he's going to bust out here. I wasn't sure if he was looking for a proxy with that worker that's out on the map, but it's something we have to keep tabs on. He is not someone that you can go up against and assume he will play one way or another. He has an extremely large variety of strategies at his disposal.
Yeah, the cool thing is that Stats has that as well, and that's why I'm so excited for this series, and that's why I think we're going to see so much fireworks in this best of 5, because Stats is not a one-trick pony. Yes, he can play defensive with Blink Stalkers. Yes, he is comfortable using Colossus, a unit we don't see super often, but he also loves his Stargate play, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see a couple of Dark Templars, a lot of War Prison play. I'm really excited for it because it's just going to be incredibly hard for both these guys to figure out what their opponent is doing in each and every single map.
All right, well, just like you said, Kev, as this Reaper comes inside of the main base, it needs to spot that Stargate. It's crucial information for ByuN to have, but at the same time, he's building his factory in the corner of the map. What is he going to do with this? What is the strategy for both players in this tense scenario?
Yeah, Stats could absolutely open up with an Oracle here, because Oracle can always be good, especially because ByuN likes to be so aggressive. He often doesn't have that many units at home, and if the factory is proxied as well, that means you have no Widowmine at home, means you have no Cyclone at home, but at the same time, because this map is so good for Terran aggression, Phoenixes can be incredibly good in lifting a siege tank in an aggression, or lifting a Cyclone, picking up a medevac. So both options are useful. We see the Oracle first, but don't be surprised if it's a Phoenix follow-up.
Yeah, the Reaper's going to come in here for the secondary scout. This is big. He needs to know what is going on inside of the base of Stats. He's going to poke away at this probe, sees the 2 Adepts, and he will spot. He now knows 100% what is on the way. Meanwhile, at his proxy, his starport has finished. He has a medevac on the way with a second Widowmine. He's going to go for an extremely fast Widowmine drop.
Now, this Oracle can definitely do something on the other side of the map, but at the same time, Stats has to be worried. Oh, this is cool. We've seen this in the past. Yeah, with the Adepts as well. This is very hard to deal with if you just have a couple of Marines. But you know what's also hard to deal with, Nate? Widowmines in your mineral. Oh my god, it's a Void Ray follow-up. I don't think that's going to be incredibly useful. Void Rays cannot detect Widowmines. The Oracle, if it uses its energy on the other side of the map, this could get very ugly for Stats.
Yeah, ByuN realizing the tense here. He has 3 Adepts inside of his base. It's okay to lose a few of these workers, but he's realizing that the Oracle is going to hit from the other side. He has a turret on the way, but it's not ready yet. SCV's dying in both bases now, but he raises the wall. He shuts the door on the Adepts, so he just wants to fight the Oracle with the Marines. And here comes the drop into the natural. The Widowmines are going to burrow. First one is going to be dodged. Unburrows it, doesn't want to waste that charge, and he's going to drop the second one inside the main. There's no Mothership Core here to overcharge. There's the Void Ray, but it's not out in time to stop it from burrowing, just losing 2 probes. And the medevac gets killed too.
He does get the medevac. Look at the amount of mining time that Stats is losing in the natural. ByuN refuses to settle for 1 or 2 probes. He wants more, and look at the amount of mining time that's being lost. Right now, he doesn't really have a choice anymore. Should still get that 1 probe, but instead of just getting 1 probe, he got a 1 probe and an insane amount of lost mining time.
Seeing the way that all of these units are used by both players really shows you how well they're prepared to react to these scenarios.
Be a good shot.
In the main, it's going to shoot. One more time, is he going to target any more workers? Up to 5 kills now. So getting some more value, but the follow-up, a Liberator and a Cyclone. He's also getting Magfield Accelerator to double the damage output. That'll be extremely useful versus these Pylons and Void Rays. Love a bit of Cyclone action, Roddy, and he's backing it up with Marines.
And I love that missile turret as well. This is going to be very hard. I don't think this Void Ray is going to be incredibly useful. We saw SOS once have a sick hold with Void Rays against something similar like this, but I really think that Stats doesn't have enough units. This mine is going to shoot again.
Wow.
Nate, still no Mothership
That
Core
lack
either.
of detection, knocking the probes down. The Liberator's going to step forward. The Marines raining fire upon that Nexus, and the Void Rays can't fight Marines. These Adepts are going to come in from the backside, but still, as long as those missile turrets are there, he can't use them to pick off these units. So the Adepts are looking like they want to just go back, try to shut down the reinforcements of ByuN, but there's too much here.
He should really cancel the Nexus, I think. I'm not sure why it's going up. I'm not sure if he can ever survive here. Magfield Accelerator has completed.
Yes.
This means that these Void Rays are going to have a very hard time staying alive.
Look at that damage output. He gets rid of the first Void Ray. The second one should barely survive. Wow! So the Liberator was taken out. That opens up a little bit more ground field play. But with the Cyclones and the Marines and the turrets, it's hard to use all these units for stats. I don't know how he's supposed to get rid of this army on his front door.
I'm not supposed to how he's supposed to engage this, or I'm not sure how he's going to engage it. Loses another Void Ray. One Cyclone runs low on HP, but it will survive, and our Protoss player is in so much trouble, Nate.
Yeah, Void Ray takes some of the shots from that missile turret. You can really see if the Cyclones can lock onto any of these armored units. They are so strong. Picks off the next Void Ray. Oracle's going to run up, but they have to make sure he focuses on the Marines. Don't do the bonus damage to the Cyclones.
I mean, there's just not that much.
You can't chase. There's missile turrets here. He has 3 turrets in his opponent's base.
Yep. Well, almost in his base.
Close enough.
Yeah, in between the 2 bases, which perhaps is even weirder. These Cyclones going to lock on this Nexus, and if you think Nexus have a lot of HP, they're going to fall very quickly.
Each Cyclone with this upgrade will do 800 damage over time to a base. He has to come out and engage. The Void Ray is going to eat a lot of missile turret shots. He's actually able to clean up most of the Marines. One of these Cyclones still very low. If he can lock onto the Stalkers, he can kill those very fast, though, with that upgrade.
Yeah, I love the warp in of the Stalkers there. Stalkers have more micro potential. Actually keeps that one Nexus alive. Sick job there by Stats. Without a Mothership Core, without too much detection, and with Void Rays against Cyclones, he's done it for now, but it's safe to say that ByuN is incredibly happy with how this game has played out so far.
It looks like Stats is trying to find where the proxy is because he had that Oracle and the Adepts inside earlier. He saw that there was no infrastructure of this kind inside the base of ByuN. Is he going to be able to spot it? Well, he has the Oracle going towards the northeast. He's going to rebuild the natural, and on the way now, +1 attack for ByuN. Stim, he's getting ready to move back into that standard bio style that we know Terrans love in this matchup.
And you know what's sick? ByuN kept the Cyclones alive, actually, so he just repaired them, and that's going to help so much against these Oracles.
Run from this! Oh! Is that 1 health?
2.
Oh,
Nate, you've lost your touch.
My Terran heart, I was ready to cheer for that one.
I mean, the next push is going to be really hard to deal with as well. Photon Overcharge could help out a lot, but at the same time, Cyclones are so good in just locking on pylons as well that maybe you don't even want to get a Mothership Core right now.
You can force the Protoss to engage into you really nicely. You make a great point because the Cyclone lock-on can also outrange the pylon overcharge, so that's not going to stop you from being poked to death by the Terran.
52 army supply against 31. Another scan goes down. That pylon is going to get taken out immediately. One Stalker is probably going to fall as well. Macfield Accelerator is so powerful.
And these Cyclones can really rip into the defenses of the Protoss and open up opportunities because the Marines, of course, you don't want to try to attack, especially if they get overcharged.
Yeah, I kind of like sentries because I really think that's the best thing that Stats can do here. Hope for a couple of great force fields, but of course there are medevacts as well. You could always pick up units. I mean, he's trying to make the best of a very bad scenario, but ByuN is not the type of Terran player that makes a whole lot of micro mistakes, and so far he's doing everything right.
Yep, ByuN now has that 3rd base under construction. Stim is finishing, Combat Shields is done, and Resonating Glaives is on the way for Stats, but that's still very far, and ByuN has a huge window of opportunity where he basically just has to not get force fielded here, but that bio army is just getting bigger and bigger.
This is where things get scary, as Stim has finished up as well. How do you split up your forces now? If your Stats, he doesn't have that many forces to begin with. Void Rays are going to be quite exposed. He's going to have to be very careful there, make sure that they won't be too exposed.
He wants to move them to try to catch the drops, but ByuN actually was just hoping to sandwich him. He got the army to reposition, and now he comes in with a huge concave around this forest. We can see him target firing down those sentries, so important with the Guardian Shell, and now with the Marines and Marauders right in the face of this army. No overcharge, just a handful of Void Rays. The Marines and Cyclones will destroy this force, and ByuN will continue to push into this 3rd. Mothership Core barely pops out, but it's not enough. The pylon goes down. The reinforcements are shut down, and GG! ByuN takes game number 1.
All ByuN in the 1st game here of our 2nd semi-finals. Good scouting. Seeing that Stargate early on, I really think helped so incredibly much. Seeing the Adepts make their way across the map as well, and you gotta love how he executed that contain with the missile turrets and keeping the Cyclones alive, just microing them so incredibly well. Basically doing what we expected him to do.
It's so tense. These situations you get yourself into, you don't know 100% what's coming. You see the Adepts, your Marines are in the natural, the Oracle shows up, you lose your whole army and the game ends, but ByuN stayed cool. He didn't overcommit to defending his natural. He let a few workers die, and because of that, he defended himself long enough to get that big punch in with the Widow Mine drop, but also the Cyclone Liberator follow-up.
Yeah, I really like that you pointed out, because obviously ByuN was aware, well, that if I start dropping Widow Mines on the other side of the map, I really don't have that much at home. So let's not try to protect both locations at once. Let's just focus on one, the more important one, where I have a fully saturated mineral line, and that's what he did. And what I love the most is that one Widow Mine in the natural. He never settled for one. He's like, nope, you can pull workers all day long, but every time you pull away all your workers and you leave one probe behind, I'll keep on unburrowing. And that mine, I actually almost think it would have been better for Stats to just lose 3 or 4 workers immediately, and then at least keep mining so he would have a few more units to work with. But you want to do the right thing as a Protoss player, and you don't want to give the mine that juicy connection it's looking for. But at the same time, now he just lost so much mining time, and ByuN capitalized.
He drew the attention to the natural, and that Widow Mine inside the main base got an insane amount of probe kills throughout the course of the game. Never killed 6 or 7 at once, but he kept picking 2, 3. Every time he resaturated that gas, it was just more probes to kill. The next map in this series will be Frost. A nice, large 4-player map to continue on with things. I hope you guys are excited for this second game. An explosive start already. Enjoying your awesome BlizzCon experience as we have loaded into game number 2. Spawning in the top left position as the blue Terran player, he is ByuN! He's taken the first blow in this series, but the Protoss hope remains on his shoulders. Can he take it back? He snaps!
Frost, of course, a much larger map than Frozen Temple, so there's a good chance that things will slow down a little bit, at least in the beginning of the game, and we can already see that ByuN going for that command center on the low ground. But this is one of these maps where even if you scout it early on as a Protoss, there's not that much you can do about it. You can try to chrono boost out Stalkers, but that's an investment. That takes away from the probes you could have potentially have. It's better to just focus on your own economy at home. And I think that Stats feels pretty comfortable on this map, Nate. It should give him a little bit of time to breathe. Hopefully he can open up with those defensive Blink Stalkers, work his way towards Colossus, and then perhaps Storm as well. And if he can get all those things, a couple of observers as well, then the dream is very well alive for Stats.
And I also think just taking the map into consideration, not knowing where the opponent spawns immediately, but also it ending up as cross spawns as this probe starts to harass that poor working man down there, is ByuN's build range. He goes for this command center first, 1 barracks, then a gas, then the second barracks. So he already has his own way of doing CC first too. He's not scared to play the economic opening. He can do pretty much everything.
Yeah, there is a chance that Stats maybe does something crazy. He really wants to get this SCV nade, and he's getting quite close.
Terran Nightmares here. He's gonna get that shot. The repair, he's got a buddy.
3 against 1. Wow.
That probe.
I don't know if I can stand for this, Nate.
That's one salty probe, Kevin. He will die as ByuN shoves the scout out of his base. He's going to immediately go for the tech lab and the reactor while he starts his third. So he wants to get his production for his barracks going as soon as possible, get his stim on the way. Of course, one of the benefits of this setup is you have those multiple barracks so fast, you can build a very large bio army by the time most any aggressive hits would come from Protoss, which keeps you safer, but also if the Protoss plays that economic style, goes for the fast third, as a Terran, you will have a much bigger army than you would from a Reaper expand to do your first big push.
Yeah, there was a time in Protoss vs Terran where if you would scout this as a Protoss, you'd be like, cool, I'm gonna chrono boost out Blink and I'm gonna try to win with Blink Stalkers only. But Terran players just got too good in defending that. They know when to pull SCVs, they know how many bunkers they need, and then when Stim finishes up and they've got the right amount of Marines and Marauders, they can take care of super aggressive builds like that. So we see Blink, but I'm expecting a more defensive Blink. Now what is going to be very important, and that's kind of where I feel that Deer dropped the ball early this tournament against ByuN, is that the moment Blink is done, Stats wants to have some sort of map presence. He wants to be out there. He wants to shave off a Marine if he can. He wants to do a little bit of damage on those medevacs, because if ByuN just sits back, and he macros up, when he actually runs across the map, that's going to be a pretty powerful army, and a way more powerful than just Blink Stalker standing there, no matter how good your micro is. So it's very important that Stats get out there and applies a little bit of pressure and just be annoying and buy time for himself.
It's very important because once ByuN gets rolling, you're going to have medevacs hitting all of your bases simultaneously while that main army is probably destroying yours as well. ByuN has the ability to ramp up heavily off of this particular opening just because of the fast economy of having those fast orbital commands. And what I'm most curious to see is what is Stats' next step, right? He went for the Robo, he went for the Blink.
I think Colossus. I really think Colossus. I think he feels pretty comfortable opening up with Blink, having a couple of Stalkers out, buy time, and then drop the Robo Bay. If he would do anything else, like if he tries to rely on gateway units for a long time, that's a pretty fast third base, of course. 4 minutes, 20 seconds roughly. I mean, that's good, Nate.
Yeah, it's a very quick Nexus to have set up. And of course, the biggest thing you want to do here is saturate that base, use that extra economy since Protoss generally takes the third before Terran these days, and use those extra resources to build the army you need to stop the onslaught of ByuN.
But now it's even more important that Stats buys time with these Blink Stalkers. Pick off one Marine here that's trying to take the Xel'Naga Watchtower. That's a decent start, but he needs to buy more time because ByuN is going to have that window where he has a very, very nice amount of Marines.
He doesn't miss anything.
No.
Immediately gets that serve. But you have a great point. And to ByuN's credit, seeing those Stalkers at the tower as well might give him an indication that he's not going to be hit with something like a Warp Prism Adept play as well.
Yep. Well, good job there. You know, just getting a couple of shots off. The medevacs are going to be the most important thing. As long as ByuN has medevacs, he can be aggressive because these Marines can keep stimming and keep healing up. So it's really important for Stats that he starts picking them off. Resonating Glaives is going to be the follow-up, by the way, for now.
Some gateway upgrade investments as the follow-up to this. No further robotics bay tech of any kind yet. And with the Prism here, he has a lot of opportunity to do some poking, push, prod against this army. I think ideally you want to try to avoid stimming if you're ByuN. You don't want to stim into this army unless you know that you can kill it. Of course, as soon as he stims, Stats should blink away.
Solid start here for Stats. Gets 2 Marines. Yep, and he has the Prism as well. Prism, of course, is going to help him buy some time. Prism may be able to find these 2 medevacs. It's so close. Put on your binoculars.
Seeing this would be huge. The medevacs actually go to the left side, so it looks like he wants to drop onto the Prism, but he's actually in a pretty good spot to avoid the fire of these Marines.
This is risky by ByuN because there are still 6-7 Blink Stalkers on this side of the map as well.
Yeah, he's going to unload. I think he's realizing that that threat is very real. He might try to jump on top of this. And an observer does see the Marines that are outside of his base. So that third base is underway. Is everything good? Double forward starting up behind the Stats.
Medevac's super exposed. Instead, he's going to go for the Marine. Would have loved to see him get 6-7 shots off on that Medevac there. I really think that would have made it life a little bit easier on him.
And one super interesting thing is also that ByuN plays extremely Marine heavy. There's very few Marauders in this composition. He's investing the gas extra resources into Widow Mines. He has his third base on the way now. And well, he's getting close to this third.
I still like this setup so far, though, for Stats. I mean, with a Guardian Shield, with Resonating Glaives, this should not be an impossible hold for him.
And ByuN's going to take that first in, but the Guardian should get spots. Immediately focuses down the Sentry, though, and he wants to get all those expensive tech units. Both the Sentries immediately killed. And without the Adepts, he can't fight the Marines. He needs those Resonating Glaive Adepts to stop this army. He's killed a lot of the Bio, but he's lost a lot of expensive units in turn. And you said it earlier, Kev, only one of these Medevacs has been killed just now. He just needs to keep those alive after the fight's end.
This looked like a decent setup for Stats, but ByuN just so good. Picks off these units immediately, knows when he has to disengage, gets a couple of Stalkers, more damage on that Stalker as well. And look at the supply, suddenly 55 army supply against 27, and Stats has to worry about defending 3 bases at once. Also ended up losing the Mothership Core. That was very good for ByuN. Like, he makes it always look so easy. It's never supposed to be that easy, Nate.
Makes it look unfair, Kev. That's how good ByuN is. And he's following it up now with the most scary units a Protoss player could encounter. Liberators are coming out 2 by 2. More Widow Mines to support this as ByuN lands that third command center and gets ready to make his next assault.
Yeah, I mean, there are observers. The Stats knows where the units are from ByuN currently, but if one more scan gets thrown down, then suddenly you have to worry about these Medevacs just flying in from different angles. And right now, ByuN just has more units to work with. Stats is buying time, and +1 and +1 armor is almost finishing up, so that's going to help him a little bit, but these Widow Mines are going to be quite tricky as well, and the Liberator is going to siege up immediately.
He sets that Liberation Zone right down on top of the pylon. This army is going to start eating extreme amounts of damage from the air units of ByuN. If he stays and fights here too long, he's going to reposition the Liberators, opens up a little bit of time for him, and we see the Liberators start ripping into this army. The Widow Mines detonating all over the Stalkers, and once the anti-air is gone, he can't even kill the Liberator anymore. It's just going to finish off the rest of his army.
He had multiple observers, but there is not a single observer here, so these mines just splashed right over all these Stalkers. Now the observer shows up, but these mines, well, one of them was almost going to shoot again. At least he's going to be able to clean up 2 or 3, but these mines got some very, very big hits off.
Marauders focusing down the Stalkers. Those are the primary unit you're going to use to kill these Liberators. Nothing else can shoot up. 4 stats right now, and the next wave of ByuN is going to come in. More Widow Mines, more Liberators, and more Marauders. He focuses down the Immortal. It's going to try to get away up that ramp, but it will not escape. And the Liberation Zone cuts off the Natural from the third base. Stats can no longer move his units between his expansions.
He's going to try to do some counter-aggression on the other side of the map with a couple of Adepts, but he's going to have to sacrifice this Nexus perhaps. No Photon Overcharge available. It's just a couple of Adepts. There are still Widow Mines in the mix here as well. They're going to get good hits off on all these mines. One Liberator does get picked off. I must say Stats is doing a really good job, but I still think he's in a world of trouble.
He's not mining off of that third anymore, Kev. The income is skewed in favor of ByuN. He's going to continue to rip apart the Stalkers, and the Liberator gets another big shot off on that Immortal, also getting rid of its barrier, allowing the rest of the bio units to pick it off in the next fight.
You just can't get that army supply up. It's still 21 against 53, and this is not where you want to be as a Protoss player, where every single unit that you have, you got to be so incredibly careful with it. And then having to worry about those Liberators, about those Widow Mines. I do like that he's trying to buy time for himself with these Adepts on the other side of the map. But ByuN obviously smells blood. He knows that these trades have been phenomenal for him, and he's not going to go back, Nate. He wants to end this.
Yeah, he kills this pylon by the mineral line, and there's no overcharge here to help defend. The probes are exposed, and if he wants to attack, he has to move into the Liberation Zone. He hits the Immortal again. He's going to pick that up with just the Liberator. It gets picked off, and now one more Warpin's going to hit, but it's just Stalkers versus Marauders, and that is not going to be enough. The Widow Mines continue to advance. The probes are all dying. 10 workers picked up in this expansion so far. Widow Mines detonate. Nothing left. GG. ByuN goes up 2-0.
Wow, Stats looking a little flustered there as well. Like, God, this guy, like, I know what's happening. I've seen everything. Like, I'm on top of it with my Stalkers. I see his units run across the map. I knew exactly what I was up against, and still it ended up this way, Nate, where it really felt ever since that very first engagement where we had 2 sentries, a couple of Adepts and Stalkers. I really feel ByuN looked at that army and he probably thought like, well, that's a powerful army, but the way our units are positioned right now, that's not ideal. I can get both sentries, and the moment he got both sentries, I felt that it was the beginning of the end. He kept his medevac count high. He was able to keep stimming back and forth, just keep picking off units. And you know, if you play against ByuN, you need to be able to somehow, somewhere win a fight, push him back a little bit, but he was never pushed back.
In Legacy of the Void, and I love that you bring this up, a lot of these abilities like Guardian Shield are so useful for your units like your Adepts and your Stalkers. Focusing those key units down really opened up a huge window of opportunity for him. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going to a very short break. When we return, this semifinal will continue. You're watching BlizzCon 2016.
Heroes of Azeroth, I have witnessed our end. Demonic armies spilling over the horizon and onto our shores. Heed my warning. The Burning Legion has returned. Stronger, more determined than ever before. These demons seek to annihilate everything upon Azeroth. No single person can stand against the Legion alone. And so you came to me. I will deal with these intruders. No, she wouldn't. I knew we couldn't trust her!
In the end, death claims us all.
The Legion cannot be stopped. Our time is short. Now go. But remember, should you fail, all worlds will burn.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, guests of BlizzCon 2016. We are here in the middle of our second semifinal for the World Championship Series of StarCraft 2. So many passionate gamers out here, all the awesome Blizzard franchises, and Roddy, some damn good StarCraft.
Absolutely, loving it, and I think that everybody's loving it right now, except for Stats. He's got to be thinking about that last game. You know, Frozen Temple, that's a unique map, crazy aggression. Stuff happens, it's okay, forget about it. But for us, it started off very normal, very straightforward. And I can't forget about that moment where those two medevacs on the left side of the map, they were a little exposed. They were too far ahead of the Marines, and Stats shot at the Marines. I really think if he picks off one medevac there, does a little bit of damage on the second medevac, defending on the other side of the map becomes a lot easier, because ByuN is going to have to focus a lot more on his medevac micro, and then he can just keep those Marines around forever if they lose. But Stalkers, they don't out-DPS a healing medevac. So if the medevac count is at 4, you're going to have a very hard time trading with those ByuN units. I felt that was a big missed opportunity.
Yeah, one thing that really worked well for ByuN so far in this series is keeping the expensive units alive, the ones that you don't want to have to replace. By not losing the medevacs, he moved into Liberators very quickly, and those Liberators really sealed the deal and cement that position for him to continue rallying across the map and rip Stats defense apart.
Yeah, that's the downside, of course. If you're Terra and you're working with one starport, if you end up losing your medevacs, you need new medevacs, so you can get those Liberators. But if the medevacs stay alive, you're like, well, cool, I've got 4, let's move into Liberators, and that's when the Protoss Nightmare becomes a reality.
All right, the next map, game number 3, will be played on New Gettysburg as the players load in. I hope you guys are excited. We have a nice full arena here. Let's get into it. Introducing our first player in the Southeast, the Blue Terran, the GSL Kodesh champion, with 1 win away to go to the Grand Finals. He's ByuN! And in the bottom left, the final Protoss hope to try and bring this back 3 games in a row. Can he do it? He's Stats!
Well, Nate, if there was one map for Protoss to start a comeback, it has to be New Gettysburg. This was a map that some Terran players looked at in the beginning and be like, yeah, we're not going to play this map. You know, this is incredibly hard. All my drops arrive late. You know, this map, Apotheosis, we don't like these maps. We want to have shorter maps. We want to be able to create chaos around the map. So this could be a good start here for Stats to bring it back. And obviously, if you win one map, you can get some sort of momentum going for yourself. And I'd love to see it, Nate. I mean, I love ByuN. He's my favorite Terran player in the world. But I do want to see Stats put up a better fight, because I know that he's capable of it. One of the absolute best Protoss players in the world. And he's had such a great year. He deserves to have a close series here.
I completely agree. New Gettysburg, one of those maps where you have a very direct path to your opponent as far as drops go, past those islands, those wall blockers. They make it a little bit trickier to do the normal Terran drop harass all over, those island expansions. Also coming into play later on. But ByuN has moved out of quick SCV towards the middle of the map. He stayed at the watchtower for a little bit so he could see if a probe would pass by, and he's going to proxy that factory again. We may see a very similar opening to that of Frozen Temple.
Yep, and this is one of these maps as well where if you can get a contain on the bottom of that ramp, it becomes very hard. Because sometimes the way you deal with these Terran contains is you blink out of your main or you warp in behind the Terran line, and then you cut off the reinforcements, you buy time for yourself, 1 warp in cycle, 2nd warp in cycle, and then you collide on it. But if everything is containing you immediately, like look at the way that this natural is designed, how are you supposed to warp behind the Terran contain? Like, you're not going to be able to do it. So it's incredibly important that Stats picks up on this as soon as possible. Ends up losing a worker immediately. Will he get the Reaper?
Tries with that shade, barely misses it as ByuN's Reaper does escape. And of course, he doesn't want to lead it to the right side. Don't want to show him that factory. The starport is on the way now as well as the natural expansion finishes for ByuN. But Stats, Roddy, he's going into the Stargate again. Is it going to be the Oracle? Will it be better or worse on this map to defend this? Probably Proxy Mine Drop, right?
Yeah, I mean, Oracle wouldn't be bad as long as the follow-up is not Void Rays, I feel. I really don't think that Void Rays are going to add a whole lot, especially not if ByuN does the exact same thing, but we'll see what it's going to be. It's 2 adapts now. This is also a map where the adapt Oracle opening is strong, powerful. The adapt range just barely not enough.
He tried to throw that grenade to also push him back, buy himself a little bit more opportunity there. So
Still doesn't know, Nate. He still doesn't know.
And we talked, you know, on Frozen Temple, when this same scenario occurred, one thing that we also have to point out is that Stats doesn't get a Mothership core with this. So, I mean, would it be better to go for that or another Stargate unit faster? I'm honestly not sure.
I mean, I think you want to get as many units out as possible. Obviously, if your opponent is going to be super aggressive. There we do see the Phoenix follow-up, Nate. That makes me happy to see, because Phoenixes can be very good against like chasing a medevac down. And of course,
you can pick up the mine before it burrows.
Exactly, and that would be massive as well, especially if the Adepts are in position. How many units does ByuN have in the main base? Not all that many, Nate. It's barely enough to deal with this Oracle, but what if the Oracle heads to the natural?
Yeah, gets one of the SCVs building a depot, but he has a turn on the way. She actually could get quite a few kills. The Phoenix is here. The medevac has arrived with the 2 Widow Mines. Stats, how is he going to react? The probes, they aren't moving all the way just yet. Okay, he picks up the first one, but the one on the left side is going to... On Burrow, he's not going to settle for anything less than a few probes, and he gets 3 in the main base, going to the natural. The Phoenix is out of energy. It can no longer pick these units up. He has no detection.
This is very brutal already. 4 workers, a lot of lost mining time, and these Widow Mines are in incredibly good position. Cyclone is going to be the follow-up once again. More Phoenix's robotics facility does get dropped immediately. He will find these production facilities now. I believe the Phoenix is SART, correct? Can we confirm that? He gets the medevac. Did Stats see it now?
Well, he sees it with the Oracle. He sees it with the Oracle. So there's a couple of very important things here. As he gets another big Widow Mine shot off on those workers. The missile turret already being built out in front. He's getting mag field accelerator again for these Cyclones. Gets another 2 probes with that mine. With no detection, he can't get rid of them.
The Phoenixes need to take care of this contain as quick as possible. Obviously, he's got other worries with the Widow Mines, but he needs to take care of this contain. If the missile turrets go up, I think it's a little bit too late. Well, yeah, 1 turret is up. The Adepts are going to jump on top of the Marines. This could be enough. Can he get the Liberator, Nate?
Yeah, it's such an important unit. It's very, very good that he's able to grab that, and also keep in mind that the Cyclone's lock-on can be canceled by being lifted by the Phoenix. It gives him a little bit more utility in working with it, but the mines are still there.
Yes, this all hurts, but if he's able to prevent the contain and if he's able to shut this down, then at least he won't die immediately. Phoenix is going to be useful against the Cyclones as well, and ByuN is going to have to fly these production facilities to the other side of the map, or he's going to end up losing them. So yes, it's been a rough start for Stats, but it's not a complete disaster, which it would have been if 2 missile turrets and a Liberator finished up there.
Yeah, definitely a better start than letting that contain get put on his base like it was. I mean, it won the game on Frozen Temple. So you see the Phoenix, they lift up the Cyclone, neutralize to pick up. There's going to be the lock-on and by himself. A little bit more time. That bad boy's got 3 health. Okay.
ByuN is like 3 health. Nice. I can pick off another Adept.
I can micro against another one. So another Cyclone and Liberator are about to finish. We have +1 attack on the way, extra barracks. So ByuN's getting ready to move into ByuN, and the Phoenix with the Adepts are here to shut this down. He's going to lose. He should lose this Liberator and that Cyclone.
Yep, and then of course these production facilities, they're in dice position. Good job there, keeping the Phoenix alive. That was 3 HP. Everything has 2 or 3 HP in this game.
That's fighting back in this game. The Oracle escaping once again from that Cyclone.
Okay, so the bad news for Stats is that he's down in workers, and that's not something where you ever want to be as a Protoss player. But the good news is that ByuN is going to lose his starport, or at least take a lot of damage, and he's not building anything. Stim is going to be late.
Yeah,
he just started it.
Just begun. I think this is really big, shutting down this production, since we know that at this phase of the game, Terran wants to get a lot of add-ons. They want to get the reactors, Stim, combat shield, and rebuilding this infrastructure is going to be pretty rough to do.
ByuN needs to drop a starport fast if he wants to get any sort of medevacs health, because if he loses the factory, he's going to have to start all over again. ByuN has like 15 seconds to build. Well, I guess unless he thinks the factory is going to survive there.
These Adepts are actually getting pretty close to that bunker, too. Trying to threaten and keep those Marines away. The Cyclone is here. He wants to defend with the Cyclone, and he will be able to land that factory safely.
Well, that's very big news for him, because if he would have lost that and he didn't have a starport yet, he had to start all over again.
Turret gets one of the Phoenix as well, so nice little grab there for ByuN, and definitely a little bit more scrappy game than we're seeing on Frozen Temple, as Stats has stabilized. He has that 3rd Nexus, finishing up +1 attack and resonating Glaives Kev. I think he's recognizing that ByuN plays extremely Marine heavy, and that really gives these Adepts a huge amount of versatility against this composition.
Absolutely want to keep that Oracle alive so you can tag this army and you know where the drops are coming from. But this is definitely not that bad for Stats. Some would even say that they kind of like his position because Stim is going to be late. I would love to see a bigger follow-up, but I mean, Phoenixes and Adepts can be incredibly powerful against the Terran army, up to the point where the Widow Mine count can get crazy high and maybe there's a whole bunch of Liberators. But against smaller armies, anything 30, 40, 50 army supply, Phoenix Adept can be very deadly.
And he's going to continue to add Phoenix, and we talked about it on this map. The drop path is so direct. if ByuN even wanted to try with how late this starport is to go for a drop, he has to go all the way around the top side of the map, the longest distance possible. Keeping the Phoenix here is extremely useful for not only scouting, but preventing any drop harassment.
I would love to see some stasis as well eventually. It's hard to plan them, of course, on New Gettysburg because it's such a large map, so it's hard to figure out where the Terran is going to step exactly. But it could really help because right now, stats, 9 workers ahead, much faster third base. Every second that goes by can be very good for him. This army is very high on Marines. There's a couple of Marauders, so the good play, I think, would be to send the Phoenixes in eventually when the Adepts are there, lift up the Marauders, and make sure that the Adepts do nothing but kill these Marines as quickly as possible.
If you're ByuN, you want to actually manually put the Marauders in front of the Marines, let them soak up those Adept shots as they take a lot less damage. And even the Immortal being added in here is basically his way of saying, if the Marauders are up front, they're still going to die pretty fast.
Army supply is a lot closer than we've seen in the past. Stats knows where this army is. Another weapon would be nice. He's just going to go for it. Pops the Guardian Shield. Where does Phoenix is at? You want to get the Adepts on top of the Marines.
There's not enough medevacs to save this whole army. If he gets on top of him, he will have to fight. And here he is. Guardian Shield in the back. He lifts the Marauders immediately. And the Adepts are laying tons of damage onto these Marines. ByuN has been routed back. He has been forced to retreat. And right into a stasis trap. His army completely caught. As soon as this is over, he's going to lose everything he has.
Wow, how do you drop it there, Nate? Sick play. The only bad news for Stats is that he lost most of his Phoenixes. That does hurt. They are very expensive units, but this is not a good day to be a Marine.
That's if you're one of those Marines in that stasis, it's a real bad day. Sends in a hero medevac, but it's not going to be able to get these guys out of there.
He still gets 2 sentries, by the way. That's so sick. I have no idea how ByuN does that, but all those units, they were super dead, like ultra dead, but he still gets 2 sentries, so he absolutely made the best of a very dicey scenario there.
And now ByuN locked in on 2 bases, has a large Protoss army outside of his natural. The question is, when is Stats going to try to force it? Will he go in? He has the possibility to break this, but he needs to be extremely cautious since he does have an economic advantage. You don't want to throw away the army that you have into a defensive position.
Yeah, but I mean, the medevac count is not that high. There's a couple of Liberators, 2 more Liberators. Yeah, if I'm Stats here, I probably think like,
Knight a third.
Yeah, exactly. Contain him a little bit. Like, you try to contain me, payback.
Yeah.
Love it.
If you keep the Terran, lower that economy, and ooh, great play. There's no turrets here, so the War Prism shades a bunch of Adepts. The depot is down, threatens that, and here's the big Warpin inside of the main base. So Stats now hitting from 2 possible positions as he throws the shades towards the natural expansion and rips through 6 SCVs and quite a few Marines. And now he's actually coming in through the front side, but the Liberators are ripping the Stalkers apart.
Yeah, you gotta be careful a little bit. I mean, Stats is transitioning, and he's doing really good. Don't get me wrong, he's getting a lot of SCVs here, but it's important that he doesn't bleed out too many units, Nate, because he is transitioning. He's getting a fort base, he's getting a robo bay. Stats does not need to win the game here.
No, he does not. And there we have the Colossus on the way, that more sustained damage output, thermal lance, something you won't have to rely on trying to get big disruptor shots. He's done a lot of economic damage. Right now, he has triggered ByuN's response, a huge counterattack. If ByuN moves out, this is going to be his best and possibly only opportunity to take this game back.
Yeah, 4 Liberators is scary though, because the amount of anti-air is not incredibly high right now on the side of Stats. It's only 7 Stalkers and a Phoenix, Nate. So Liberators could absolutely turn this game around again. Army supplied still incredibly close, but you're right, the clock is absolutely ticking for ByuN, because he not only is 24 workers behind, Stats is going up to 4 bases, and he's getting Colossus.
And he's getting +2.
Stats need to get more anti-air. That's pretty much the only thing he needs. I would say get nothing but Stalkers from this point, or at least a whole bunch of Stalkers.
The Liberators are going to become an increasingly growing problem for him as that army moves back out towards the east side. Cyclone locks onto a Phoenix. There are only 2 medevacs in this army, though. 3 Adepts are going to be dropped inside of the main base. The Marauders were removed. He's getting into position, throwing the shades towards the natural. The depots are raised just in time to keep him back.
In the last few minutes, Stats, without overcommitting too much, has killed 25 SCVs, Nate. Like, that's very big. And that just allows him to be in this comfortable position that he's in. He's still dancing back and forth. He still has a powerful army. We can see the income advantage. You know, he had a rough start. The Widowmines definitely put ByuN ahead, but ever since Stats stabilized and he started doing stuff on the other side of the map, he's mining way more than his opponent.
And Dark Shrine will boot up, as well as a second robotics facility for Stats to boost that production and open some more harassment opportunities. More Liberators, more Widowmines coming in for ByuN, but 2 Adepts find themselves in an undefended mineral line.
Yep, and the War Prism still being annoying in the main base as well. A few more Adepts. I'm loving it. ByuN has had enough. He's going to try to look for the engagements on the left side of the map. The armies are clashing. Liberators will siege up.
Yeah, he gets those freedom zones down. The Protoss army retreats out. This is so tense. Stats cannot fight underneath the Liberator zones. He has to focus them down. The Stalkers are going to blink to the right side, but the Marauders immediately begin focusing them as the Adepts and Immortals come in from the left. And ByuN's army getting extremely small here. Those Colossi using that range that they have to push this army back.
Yep, they're even in army supply, but the reason why it's so small is because Stats is doing so much on the other side of the map.
He has no workers.
Yeah, protect your main, protect your third base. He's being so annoying with these Adepts. So ByuN, even when he wants to be aggressive, he can't send all his units. Stats is playing a phenomenal game 3. I'm loving it.
So many of these SCVs been ripped apart by Stats in this game. The army on the top of that center position ramp, cutting it off with the Liberators as +3 armor has begun for Stats, +2 attack, and just more and more Liberators. I mean, if you're a Terran player right now, you need a lot of Liberators to deal with an army like this.
3 Colossus, welcome back, Commander.
It's almost like we're back at Heart of the Swarm, Kev.
Those were good days. Protoss won a lot.
I'm not a fan of those. These ones are a little bit nicer. So we do have a big siege up of Liberators as that third base takes more harass. The Stalkers blink straight into it, but still 4 Liberators shelling away at this army. We see the anti-air capabilities being picked apart quickly. DT's mixed in, actually getting an extreme amount of damage on those forces, and GG Stats defends the attack and takes game number 3.
Wow, talking about staying calm and composed when there are Widow Mines in both of your mineral lines early on. You're down 0-2, and it's starting to feel like a disaster, but it all goes back to him preventing those missile turrets from going up, preventing from allowing ByuN to have the contain that he was looking for, shading in those Adepts, killing the Marines, and then picking up the Liberator, picking up those missile turrets, chasing down those production facilities. The fight in the middle, lifting those Marauders immediately. Yes. I loved it, man. That was really good play by Stats.
A perfect execution on that hold, and it can be so difficult to know what to do as the defender in that situation, but recognizing the most valuable units, the Liberator, the Cyclone, giving up the Phoenix to that missile turret just to get the Liberator so that he could move his Adepts down is huge.
Nate, as a Protoss, I'm quite surprised about map number 4, because we just played on New Gettysburg. The next map is going to be Apotheosis. So what do you think that ByuN has vetoed? Do you think he would veto Dasson? Maybe he hates Dasson?
Maybe he doesn't want to take a risk on that map. It's a very interesting choice. Apotheosis is probably like Terran's favorite cheese map when you're on ladder or something like that. We talk about how players like Uthermal just use it as a Pocket Reaper map. And ByuN, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he has some very aggressive, crazy strategy held up for this map specifically.
Yeah, but Stats must be thinking about it right now. He's like, oh, cool, I can play on Apotheosis.
And a straight-up game is very narrow, not that easy to drop, long distance for ground push.
Like, all these drops from Terran are just going to arrive a little bit later because the map is so big. You know, Protoss will always have one observer more, one more unit in position, have a few more seconds to react to everything, which is why this is a nice map for Protoss, unless indeed ByuN does something super aggressive early on, maybe even one base proxy, it's possible. But once again, Nate, I feel that every Protoss that plays on this map in a best of 5 is thinking like, all right, you know, if you want to play on this map, you must have something very special in store, because it makes no sense for you to do regular stuff.
Yeah, very interested to see what ByuN is going to break out. What a series we've had, though, definitely showing a better response to that aggressive build that we saw in the first game on New Gettysburg, but also great use of the Colossi as well, because by the time that you're able to even kill those Stalkers, unless you have an insane number of Liberators, you can't break that down. And then we still have a lot of fans, of course. I see a lot of ByuN signs in that crowd. You guys like ByuN?
Everybody plays Terran over here, Nate. I feel outnumbered as a Protoss.
I got no problems with that, Kev.
It's okay. Well, we are getting ready to hop into game number 4. Will it go down to the rubber match, or is ByuN going to secure his ticket to the finals?
It's time to find out. We have loaded into Apotheosis, the possible deciding game of this best of 5. And the man with SCVs going across the map in the southeast, he is leading 2-1. He is ByuN. And this man defending this aggressive push could set him up for a 1-game shot at the grand finals, defending the pushes all series long. He is Stats!
Now, if I know my stats, knowing, like, this is a great map for Stargate play, so Stargate openings are good here, but A, I'm really expecting him to scout for stuff like this, and B, most of the time, whenever stats, oh, no, that's, he was gonna, is he gonna, no. Is he actually gonna take the gold immediately, Nate?
A bit of a risky build to take when you're getting proxied on one base by the Terran player, but ByuN putting the barracks out there, he has only built a single barrack, so it looks like it's gonna be this fast nexus on the gold, versus this probably proxy barracks into proxy factory into proxy starport. ByuN, without putting 2 barracks here, it's not a Reaper all in. It's going to be some basically proxy 1-1-1 type push.
Yeah, I'm expecting stats to go 1 gate fast expand. I didn't expect the gold, but 1 gate fast expand and then drop a pretty quick robo and add 2 more gateways and just focus on getting the stalker count up. Adepts are obviously good early game, but they don't have the same micro potential.
Check the wrong side for proxies, Roddy. The whole left side.
He's not done yet, is he?
And if he goes back home, he's not going to see what ByuN has in store here. That factory very close to finishing. ByuN went for a single Marine into a reactor. I mean, this could just be Marine Tank. It could be Marine Cyclone Liberator. There's a lot of different ways that ByuN can move forward with this proxy, especially since Stats has no idea.
It's he's getting a much faster Mothership Core this game, so that I think bodes well for him. And I'm still expecting and hoping him to drop the Robo, because I think that's the most solid option. You know, 1 gate, fast expand, robotics facility, 2 more gates, try to get out as many stalkers as possible, and then just focus on your micro. Sometimes Stats even tries to get very fast disruptors against 1 base all-ins, just because, you know, every unit you pick off is incredibly good, and disruptors can be good against tanks as well.
So it is going to be a siege tank opening versus Stargate. Okay. And I mean, if he were to go for something like an Oracle, though, the utility of defending back home gets a little bit tricky, but Phoenix can pick up the tanks, prevent them from firing. And I guess it really just comes down to what else he's going to supplement this with. I mean, we've seen Siege Tank into Cyclone, Tank Liberator.
That is the first scout. I mean, the first unit that's making its way across the map right now, this one lonely adept here in the middle of the map, that's the very first scout 3 minutes into the game on Apotheosis against a Terran like ByuN. I'm very surprised by this, Nate.
There's nothing here to defend the gold base. There's nothing here at all whatsoever to stop this army from just sieging up. The pylon's not in range of the backside of the mineral line. Adept's going to teleport in and immediately take some shots from the Marines and the tank. But that pylon, it can't actually defend this base. The more Marines are going to come out. There's another siege tank. First medevac is here, so there are the healing capabilities. I don't know what Stats can do. ByuN seems to just completely caught him off guard. The lack of scouting has put him in such a vulnerable position.
He's gonna use another Photon Overcharge. Just pick off 1 Marine, but it's still, I mean, that's 2 Photon Overcharges for 1 SCV and 1 Marine. Gotta be careful. 1 Adept is taking a lot of damage and it dies immediately. Every unit is super important against 1 base all-ins.
2 siege tanks, a medevac to micro them, and Marines to blast down the expansion. Stats went for a greedy build on this map, and it may have cost him his chance at the grand finals. Can ByuN be stopped? There's nothing inside the main base to push this away.
It's only 1 gateway as well. Gateway number 2 and 3 are a little bit late, so they are not ready yet. It's going to be 2 Phoenixes, no more Photon Overcharge. That Adept dies too, and it just seems like Stats almost has nothing to do with this.
Everything being blown to bits by ByuN as he picks off the pylon, cuts off the production. Only 2 gateways transforming to try and stop 2 siege tanks, 2 medevacs, and a hell of a lot of Marines. ByuN is going to push this army back, kill whatever is left here in Stats, hanging on by a thread. There's nothing left to be done. He cannot defeat this army.
There is no DPS in this Protoss army. The Adept will fall. Probes are being pulled, but they too will fall.
And ByuN will destroy this army, making his way to the grand finals of our 2016 WCS Championships. The Mothership Core is dead, and so is Stats. GG!
Traditional fist bumps there from ByuN as the reigning GSL champion keeps his dream alive to go back-to-back, Nate. Winning GSL is awesome. Winning BlizzCon perhaps even better.
A historic, monumental year for this young man. And boy, does he look happy, Kev.
Yeah. I mean, after that game number 3, I can imagine he got a little bit scared as well. He's like, damn, Stats playing good on this map. And the moment you start proxying and cheesing on game 4, you know it's risky. Yes, it can work, but it can also fall flat on its face if it gets scouted immediately. It can turn into a disaster. And before you know it, you're loading into game number 5, and you're like, boy, where did my lead go? You know, I was up 2-0. So the relief here makes a lot of sense. I mean, you gotta love this guy. How do you not love him, Nate?
How can you not cheer for ByuN? This guy has worked so hard, has such an amazing story, and it is honestly just a treat to watch this guy show the best way that you could possibly play Terran.
Yeah, I mean, game one, that's just sick. You know, everything that he does, and game number two as well. It's just domination. It looks normal. Everything CC first, you know, a couple of Marines, a couple of Marauders, but from that point on, he steps it up, and he really knows just how to perform, how to deliver when it matters the most.
I'm sure many of you are very excited to see him in the grand finals against Dark. That's it for semifinal number 2. We hope you guys enjoyed this series. You're watching the World Championship Series finals here at BlizzCon. We'll be right back.
Systems online. Commence hero upgrade. Hero upgrade complete.
Hail to the Queen.
New battleground detected. New hero arrival.
The Queen of Blades. This should be fun. Don't worry, I'll make this quick.
Having fun yet?
Please, you had best be joking. Oh, you really don't seem to be up to this task, do you? Oops. I expected so much more.
Do you ever shut up?
Yes! Finally a challenge!
Everyone, please give it up. It's your second grand finalist, ByuN! ByuN, you have made it to the grand finals here at the WCS Global Finals where it matters most. Please tell us what is going on in your head right now. 일단 이번 가장 중요한 결승전 이제 진출을 하셨는데 첫 소감 얘기해 주세요.
일단 이렇게 많은 팬분들 앞에서 이렇게 좋은 무대에서 결승 진출했다는 게 되게 기쁘고, 근데 아직은 기뻐하면 안 될 것 같아요. 곧바로 결승전이 있잖아요, 박영호 선수랑. 그래서 아직은 기뻐하면 안 될 것 같아요. 근데 엄청 기뻐요.
So, there's so many fans for you out there. The first thing he said was, first of all, when it came to moving on to the grand finals, I was so happy because I was able to do it in front of all these fans like this because you guys are cheering so hard for him and he really, really appreciates that. However, he did say repeatedly that he said, but I think, I can't be too happy right now. I'm about to play the grand finals against Dark, so I know I can't be too happy right now. I shouldn't be too happy right now, but I'm so happy right now, is what he just said. And speaking of being so happy, ByuN, you are one of the players that we can always just feel the emotions you're feeling. You show your emotions on your sleeve. As you won this game, you were clearly very, very ecstatic. Can you try to describe in words what exactly you felt in that moment? 이번 경기 이기는 순간에 되게 감정에 넘치는 표정을 보여줬는데 그 순간에 정확히 무슨 생각을 하셨나요?
일단 그냥 결승 진출이구나 그렇게 생각했는데, 이렇게 좋아하는 이유가 저는 축구 경기 보면 막 골 넣고 세레머니를 하잖아요. 저는 그런 걸 되게 좋아하는데 아무래도 e스포츠는 이렇게 무대가 좀 한정돼 있다 보니까 그걸 못 해가지고 부스 안에서 그래도 최대한 기쁜 표현을 하려고 해요. 이렇게. 네.
So he says, first of all, my first thought was, okay, I'm moving on to the grand finals. I'm so excited. And he said, the second thing is, whenever he watches soccer, one of the things he likes most is that whenever someone is able to score a goal, they always have this great ceremony that they do. They show their happiness. And he really wanted to do something similar. Even though this is esports and it is different, he still wanted to do something similar to show his happiness after a big win like this in his booth. And so that's why he was able to express his happiness so much. Now, ByuN, the last time you were in a grand finals this year, you became the GSL champion. You are now at the grand finals here at the WCS Global Finals. Can you become a champion again against Dark? 이번 연에 이제 GSL에서 결승전에 갔을 때 우승을 하셨어요. 이번에 블리즈콘 결승전 갔으니까 이번에도 박영우 선수 상대로 우승할 수 있나요?
일단 8강 할 때 8강 대진표 정해지고 나서 태태전이었잖아요. 근데 GSL 제가 우승할 때도 8강은 태태전이고 4강은 오늘과 똑같이 프로토스전이었고 근데 결승이 저그는 이게 달라요. 그래서 우승 못할 것 같아요. 그렇게 자신은 없어요.
Okay, so what he said was, in the GSL, it was a similar situation where in the quarterfinals I played a Terran, and then in the semifinal I played a Protoss, but the reason why this situation is a little bit different is now in the grand finals I'm playing a Zerg, but so I'm not confident, but come on guys, you know that he stands a massive, massive chance against Dark. You have so many fans here cheering for you. I need to give you this chance to say something to them, so 마지막으로 이렇게 팬들이 엄청 많이 응원해주고 있어요.
김대엽 선수 안 물어보세요?
안 물어.
네. 질문하고 있었는데.
Okay, so he wants to talk about stats. So I'll quickly ask what I wanted to ask. Is that Stats actually mentioned in an interview yesterday that he didn't want to face ByuN because he had lost him a lot in Legacy of the Void. So I'm wondering, did that give you confidence, ByuN?
제가 어제 김대엽 선수랑 정해지고 나서 그러니까 연습할 시간이 하루밖에 없잖아요. 그래서 저는 연습실 마감 시간까지, 그러니까 시큐리티가 나가라 할 때까지 계속 있으면서 오늘 이렇게 빌드 짜온 거, 전진 건물 다 만들어 놓고 엄청 노력했거든요. 그게 딱 어제 만들면서 무조건 이기겠구나 생각을 했어요. 그래서 오늘 되게 만족해요. 빌드 이렇게 잘 통한 거 가지고.
So he says, the reason why I feel so satisfied and happy today with my series against Stats is because yesterday after everyone left and Stats was done and all the players were done, I stayed until the building was closed, trying to prepare the different builds and strategies for every single map. So after I was done preparing throughout the night, I decided at the end, okay, there's no way that I can lose. I feel so confident and prepared right now, and that's why he was able to feel so satisfied with this win right now. And so I will give you this last chance. I know this has been a long interview, so I thank you for that. This is a chance for you to say something to the fans out in the crowd. 그 마지막으로 팬분들한테 한마디만 해주세요.
이렇게 여기 제 홈이 아닌데도 불구하고 이렇게 많은 팬분들이 티어풀도 만들어주시고 응원도 많이 해주시고 너무 진짜 감사드리고요. 국내에서도 새벽 시간인데 불구하고 이렇게 TV 시청해주신 분들 되게 감사드립니다. 그러니까 팬분들 덕분에 제가 이렇게 열심히 준비하고 그럴 수 있는 것 같아요.
So he says, first of all, thank you guys so much. I know that, I'm not even American, but you guys out in the crowd are still so nice. I see so many signs that say my name on them, so thank you guys so much for that. And also to my fans that are watching online, the fans that are in Korea, thank you guys so much for cheering for me. I know it's super late over in Korea, but it's because of you guys over there and of course you guys in the audience that I am able to do so well, so thank you very much. And with that, our grand finals is set. It will be Dark versus ByuN.
Thank you very much, Smix. A big victory for ByuN. He lands himself into the second large final of his year so far. And not that much time between them either. But back on the couch, we have In Control, we have Pig, and we have Todd to break down some of what we just saw. But before we do that, I mean, how can you not get the feels when ByuN's on stage there? He's a remarkable human being, he's fun, he's entertaining, and most of all, he's one hell of a StarCraft player, Todd.
Absolutely, yeah. When have we seen players get this emotional? I guess, I was asking that to you guys off air, and some people mentioned Jaedong and MC, but it feels like ByuN is really in his own way, that he fist bumps, and it looks really like he could be anybody out there. You can tell how much this guy has worked to get to this point. And even now, going to the grand finals, I feel like it's an incredible story because on the one hand, the way he reacts to winning matches kind of makes him look like he was an underdog or something, which he's not at all. But these grand finals, to me, really feels like it's going to be the final boss against another final boss. Usually you always have a player that looked more impressive than the other one and a clear favorite, but for me, there isn't going to be in these grand finals here.
Yeah, and I think we've had that kind of fight over the years, most definitely, but I mean, we talked about it before the match, we can say it again, this is the #1 Zerg player in the world against the #1 Terran player in the world. And, you know, how often do you get to see that on this stage with this audience? It's going to be a treat for us. Yeah, with the highest stakes.
Once per year at BlizzCon.
No.
And sometimes in the GSL.
You don't, though. That's what's so amazing about this. I agree with you. In a perfect world, you would see it more. And in GSLs, we do see that every once in a while. But this is literally, like, definitively, this is the best Zerg.
Yeah.
There might be some mega hardcore fan out there that's like, no, this is the best Zerg. And the Terran, this is the best Terran. And I don't, no, there hasn't been a bigger prize all year long. And both these players want to win BlizzCon because we've seen the impact it's had on players in the past. And again, I have to go back to Jaedong. It was just yesterday. We're like, hey, you've had an amazing career. What's the one thing that's missing from that? His answer, and you could see him suffering from it, is he's like, I didn't win BlizzCon. That is what Jaedong misses out on. So these two guys, it's the highest of stakes. And it's kind of crazy to me because all week we were really building up a multitude of storylines. They all, at this point in time, I'm having like this clairvoyant commentator moment where I'm like, no, we were stupid. It was always about this one. Like, this was destiny. It was always going to be these two guys.
And big thoughts on the impressive performance before we break it down a little bit?
I mean, it's just ByuN playing to the opponent, playing fantastically. Yeah, he didn't really build his base inside his own base very often. Turned out to be a fantastic strategy. You know, Stats wasn't finding the proxies. He was kind of getting caught out by these weird attacks. He was kind of, you know, really trying to get into that macro stage of the game, trying to expand, trying to use those Stargate units, and ByuN just took those risky approaches. Every build had a different twist on it, a little slightly different way of attacking with those Cyclones, those Liberators, and of course, you know, the Marines and tanks. So I think ByuN just kind of dug deep there. He found Stats' weakness, and to be going now into the grand finals against Dark, I mean, this is those Zerg versus Terran matches which we dream of. They're the most powerful matches in StarCraft 2's history, where you see these absolute titans clash in that back and forth battle that is Zerg versus Terran. This is the modern era of Life versus Tasia, of you know, MVP versus Nesty, and I just can't wait, man.
I think ByuN, for most of this tournament, he's been absolutely fearless. Like, for a Terran to proxy like this and play as aggressive as this, it's quite crazy. Usually you have some players that sometimes do this, but they never will be as good as ByuN in doing it and in macroing at the same time. But he doesn't care. He just proxies his factory somewhere on the map, makes it work perfectly against the build that Stats was going for. And the funny thing is that Stats himself sometimes used this kind of style, but in this series played very, very shy in comparison to what ByuN had to offer here, like we see already in that game here on Frozen Temple, the way that factory, it feels like this was built as well to counter that Stargate opener from Stats, and it did so perfectly. So it's going to be very important for ByuN later in the grand finals to, I think, keep that attitude and just be fearless, just go for whatever he thinks is the right attack, the right proxy. The one time where we saw him hesitate a little bit was when he played against Showtime, and well, he lost 0 and 2. You know, he didn't attack as decisively, he didn't react properly to the counter-attack, so he just looked incredible in that whole series here. Stats is one of the best players, and ByuN just wrecked him. I mean,
this map was a perfect example of that. It really was one-sided. And even the second map, too, there was a little bit of back and forth, but you just watch the matches, and every fight he takes, it is a dominating one. It looks easy at the point where he does everything so well before the fight takes place. When the actual fight happens,
yeah, I mean,
it's a walkover.
I feel bad. Stats is a better player than you would think looking at this, and I kind of go back to what Pig was talking about before this match. It's like Stats has his own storyline kind of going on, where it's like another round of 4 where he is the prettiest bridesmaid. Like he's facing against someone that is just significantly better than him and is meant for that finals, and it's not Stats' time. And you can see that, as you point out, in almost every fight. Like, this is the game, this is the game where he actually kind of marches ahead and is able to secure that win, and it's off of basically responding to the aggression quite well, taking a definitive fight right here. If you guys get a chance, go back and watch that. I thought Nate and Roddy casted the crap out of this. Very exciting stuff. But for the most of this game, like this ability of his to respond to ByuN and push it back didn't seem to be there. Each of the pushes that occurred were the final pushes or the beginning of the end. Like, they did just unending damage to him.
The fact that it was New Gettysburg, obviously, I think helped a lot there, too.
Yeah,
hard for Terrence to
that
push
is a
across
longer
that
distance
map.
map. But definitely that's been the evolution of ByuN here. Players a few months ago, and even going into this tournament, were saying he's a predictable player. You can tell what he's going to do. But ever since that loss versus Showtime that we keep referencing, since then he's been mixing in these proxies, these aggressive builds. He's really been making it very hard for the Protoss players to predict what he's going to do. And that seems to have just given him this magical edge. I mean, ByuN units, they're stronger than regular Terran units. If he can just make the opponent a little bit uncomfortable, force even the slightest mistake, he runs away with these games so quickly.
Earlier, actually, before the tournament even began, I spoke a little bit with Dark, and I was asking him about his strongest matchup, or who he'd like to play in particular. And I don't think you guys knew that. Not you, Jeff, but he told me that Terran was actually the race he was looking forward to face.
Well, as Neeblet, I talked to him actually in my head earlier, and I said, do you regret calling out Dark? And he said, be careful what you wish for, Todd. You want ByuN? You're going to get ByuN.
I mean, the final is a treat. I mean, there's no other way you can spin it. It is, you know, the ultimate final. It's the best Terran versus the best Zerg. Hopefully, we're going to have an epically long series. And the way that both of these players play as well, I think that very well may be the case.
Oh,
we're looking at a long series here, 5, 6, 7 maps.
That's the hope. We started today being like, I can't see how any of these series would go so quick. And then we're like, geez, we need to buy 5 hours time, guys. This is incredible. Yeah, I hope so. On paper, it's the two Titans, but it has not been a competitive Sunday so far.
Even when the series are not that close, like 3-1s, 3-0s, there is always one thing to appreciate, is that it's usually like a player putting on a clinic, like a master class of how you need to play in the matchup. And those games, even though again some of them have not been as close as they could have been, I've personally enjoyed just in like from a strategic point of view, just looking at and learning a lot.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I think that's us done now for the post-game segment of the second semi-final. We're going to take a very brief break before we head into the grand finals, but we do have something special for you just coming up around the corner. We're going to have an interview with David Kim, who's going to be coming up here, as well as Christopher Crash Reed, to be talking about a couple of new developments within StarCraft 2. So stay tuned. That interview's coming up, and then it's time for the big finals.